affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes, I do.
Please state and spell your name and provide your address for the record.
Hollis Oelmann, HOLLISOELMANN, 2240 Quail Ridge Road, Ames, Iowa.
Okay. Maybe pull the mic just a little closer. Yeah, there you go. Repeat that, the zip code.
50010.
Okay, and do we have the KMZ up? Thank you. Mr. Oelmann, can you describe the current use of your property and any plans you may have for a different use in the future?
It's a corn and soybean row crop production, and I plan to keep it that way.
Okay. Can you provide a general description of the property, including buildings, waterways, tiles?
I was hoping you'd have a pull-up on it, of the land itself.
Of the land itself?
Yeah.
Other than the KMZ file, did you submit something online?
No.
Okay, no, that's okay. That's okay. You mean, you wanted the KMZ file pulled up in front of you? Is it there on that screen?
Yeah.
Is that the wrong parcel?
Yes, there's two of them. Yep.
Gotcha.
You don't quite far enough up in your case. Oh, there you go. Okay, you got it. Yep. Good point over here. There you go. This is 80 acres right here.
Okay, that square down in the southeast corner of what I assume is a standard section next to the parcel with 4.
Right, the southeast corner.
Southeast, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And so can you describe the land in terms of features, tile, other easements, pipelines, waterways?
Right, okay. No, the land has CSR about 87, 88, CSR rating 2. So it makes it a pretty good piece of ground. It is not tiled. I do want to pattern tile it, but haven't got that done yet. I haven't owned this strip too long. It's been 4 or 5 years. One of my concerns is the field entry. The field entry for me is right about here. And I see that pipeline, that's the first time I'm seeing this, that it comes that close, but I knew from the surveyors that were out there that it was going to be pretty close to my field entry. It's a real concern to me about in and out traffic on my part and working in and out of the field driveway, that's near or above this pipeline.
And on that note, when you are specifically harvesting, are you pulling double axle semis out?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it really starts in the spring,
Right.
Of field equipment. And the equipment anymore is big and it's heavy, and it doesn't take too long to get across the land, but it seems like it takes us longer to get there and into the fields, and that's obviously a point, a point of entry and exit throughout the whole season. And oddly enough, even on the other 80 that I see you had up on the screen earlier, there's a similar situation there. That piece right there.
That's your parcel as well.
Yes, that's also the southeast corner of that section.
Mm-hmm. And the line where it crosses that road. Can you tell us the name of that road?
What is it? It's, I believe it's 140th.
Okay.
140th T Avenue, something like that.
But it's standard county gravel road.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And where that pipeline enters your property would also be the driveway.
You're right.
The entrance that you would use for your
real close. There's a hill, no, in the farm here, and it would be right in that area there.
Staff is clarifying that's 150th.
Thank you. 150th.
Yes.
And sorry, can you point out that entryway again?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's got to be real close there.
okay, so it is west of that intersection.
Yes, it is.
Prior to the actual crossing. Okay.
It's not very far west. I bet that's not 300 feet.
Okay, but it'd be pretty standard to expect both of those driveways to have 80 to maybe 85,000 if it's just a little overweight.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, we're allowed to carry 90,000 in the fall. And, you know, some of the biggest heavy equipment is 400-pound or 400 horsepower tractors on a 1,000 bushel grain cart. You
Right.
know, what is that? That's well south of 100,000 pounds.
Okay, thank you. So substantially heavy. Okay. In terms of either property, do you have wetlands, waterways?
There's a
Trees.
waterway on this one. You can see it here in darker green right there. That's a grass waterway that's established. And the rest of this is not tiled that I know of when I bought it. So I would say there's no tile in it at all.
Okay, and the property we're talking about, just for our purposes, is HD-011. Just wanted to get that in the record.
Okay.
And can you point out that I just missed what you had just said? I'm sorry.
The waterway is darker green that you would see there.
Okay.
And so looks like the pipeline is going right through that.
Okay.
You know, and again, the farmland itself is not pattern tiled. That's one thing I said earlier on what I call the South 80, and this is the West 80, and there's even an East 80. They actually all three need tiled, but I estimate between these two parcels here, these two 80s, is going to take in probably in the $155,000 range to pattern tile these out. My concern is I'm almost being forced to do it ahead of time because I do want to get a pattern tile before this pipeline would go through. I already talked to a Tyler crew on it, and they're going to choose tiling services on fields that do not have pipelines or obstacles in there when they're in the area or on it. With this pipeline here, if you're going to pattern tile that, you're going to have to locate it on every one of the laterals. When you have laterals, you have mains. You know, and those laterals about 4-inch tile, they're only going to be about 40, maybe 45 feet apart. So you'll have to find, the tiling crew would have to find this pipe every place they go across it. About that last thing, and what it does to me as a landowner and paying the crew, well, it ups the expense on that significantly. Because you have another excavator and you have another operator that's trying to find this pipe that's buried. I can't figure it out if it's 4 foot or 6 foot. I got material that says both of them. But if it's 6 foot, you have to find that thing every 40 feet I don't mean to tell you, but that's significant amount of extra time and machine hours on the job. I think I have a real concern about what I just said earlier about my farm entries with this hazardous, risky pipeline either going right next to me there or underneath me when we're there going in and out of the fields.
The pattern tile, do you know how deep that would be?
Oh, it'd be 30 to 36 inches deep. The mains could be a little deeper, go another 4 to 6 inches deeper, all depending on the slope of the land.
So 30 to 45 inches max.
Yeah, 4 foot at max. You wouldn't have any tile lower than that.
Okay. And you said you've spoken with a tiler, but you've not contracted or prepaid.
Have not.
Yet. Okay.
Have not. Scares you what they want for tiling anymore. It's running in between $800 to $900 an acre. So it's a significant expense.
Are there any easements held by a third party?
Are not.
Okay. And
I don't have any other easements on any of my other farms either.
okay.
Do not.
And so no other infrastructure, gas lines, telephone, railroads?
Telephones are always kind of hard to figure out because they have the old ones at the edge of the field, right at the edge of the ditch. 90% of them are no longer even in use, but the structures are still there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the most part, those cables run along the ditch line instead of crossing the fields. But to answer your question, no. I don't know of any cables or any landlines or any additional pipe that are through these fields. And they usually are designated by some warning of a pipe or sign at the end of the field border, and I don't have any of that.
Any other feature or condition that might not be readily apparent and that might affect or be affected by the proposed project?
No, none that I know of. It gets a little hilly on this, what we call the West 80. This one right here. There's some significant difference in landscapes there that I would think would be somewhat challenging, but I'm
Okay,
sure
so
they have a way of doing it.
on the west side of the parcel H-HD-011, there's some hilly terrain.
No, on the south side,
South side.
yes.
Thank you for the correction. And that's H-HD.
No, not on that one. You're still on the West 80, but it's on the south side of the West 80.
Gotcha. Thank you. Can you describe any specific concerns you might have and any recommendation you may have for the board to address your concerns?
Well, the ideal recommendation for me would be shift. You can see where this pipeline, proposed layout of the pipeline is. It's on the southwest corner of both of these parcels. It'd be ideal for me if they just move it a quarter mile further southwest on both of these parcels and wouldn't interfere with me at all.
Okay. I think that's it for my questions. Parties? Mr. Taylor?
My name is Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club. And first of all, what county are you in?
This is Hardin County.
Hardin County. And I wasn't clear, do you own two parcels there or just that one? Is it an 80?
Well, in Hardin County, I own 4, and you're seeing 2 here. And this is one of them. It's an 80 acres, and the other parcel is another 80.
Okay.
That one there. Yep.
So how many parcels do you have that are impacted by the pipeline?
These two for now.
Okay. There was only one parcel listed on the schedule, that's why I wondered.
Oh. No, because I received 2 easement agreements, and trust me, they're both on there.
Okay. I will trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the map, just to the east of your eastern parcel, there are 4 buildings. Those look like confinement operations?
Yes, they are.
Those are not yours, or are they?
No, they're not mine. They're the neighbors.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. It's dead close right there in the southwest corner of that section, which is simply right across the road from the southeast parcel of land that I own. So,
Okay.
between my entry in the field and those hog barns, we're not a football field apart.
Okay. So about how close would those confinement buildings be to the pipeline?
Maybe your fancy map can tell me that. I'm guessing 400 yards.
Okay.
$908, 302 yards.
Oh, sorry about that.
You're pretty good.
Now, your field entry that you talked about, is that where you would bring your planter and your combine in?
Yes, it's all, for me, it's all season long because I'm pretty well the Lone Ranger out there. Start with planting equipment, and with the planting equipment, you have supply, semi, and not to mention the unit itself. Following that, it's a spraying equipment. It's from spraying, you go to again another spraying. It's incorporating herbicides, everything that you would do to a normal farm operation.
And so how do you think the pipeline would adversely impact that entryway?
Well, besides raising the stress off the radar screen for me, it's the unknown. It's a risk. It's bad enough that it goes across the field itself, which is some distance away. But if you have to knowingly work above that, because it just so happens to be under or close to your field entry, that's taken this risk and uncertainty another level up.
You mentioned risk. Are you concerned about, as you're working in the field, the risk that if there were a pipeline rupture?
Well, if there's a pipeline rupture, from what I know of this project, and I haven't did all my due diligence on it, but heard enough in here today to scare you. It'd wipe out that hog barn and anything else anywhere it's close to it.
And if you were working on the land, a planting or harvesting, and there were a rupture, does that give you any concern?
I wouldn't be around here to tell you about it.
if there were a pipeline rupture, where would the emergency personnel come from to respond to that?
Well, Ackley would show up whether ready or not, and then you would probably have some more qualified people out of Owl Falls, but, a rupture would be disastrous. What scares me more even than a rupture is leaks. If you have pipe, eventually you have leaks, or corrosion, or anything. I deal with quite a bit of 28 nitrogen solution. If you know anything about fertilizer, that's corrosive as can be. And it will, over time, develop a leak, whether it be on my spray rig or my storage barrels or hoses, or you name it. So if there's a leak in this pipeline, how are you going to tell that? Can't smell it. Can't see it.
And do you know if the emergency responders in your area have been trained to deal with CO2 pipeline leaks or ruptures?
I know a few of them on Ackley, first responders and fire department. Very minimal, if any. And I can't speak to Owl Falls units.
You mentioned, I think, that you were thinking about pattern tiling your land. Is that for both parcels?
Yes, it would be. And what I said was I would like to get it done ahead of potentially, if this pipeline does go through, you really want it done ahead of that. Because the added expense and hazard of finding this pipeline, exposing the pipeline to make sure you don't hit it with field tile units. You have to expose that, like I said, on the laterals, and the laterals, of course, on this would run mostly north and south because that's the lay of the land, and you would have to find that every 40 foot.
Just out of curiosity, why hasn't the land been tiled up to now?
Those the person ahead of me just didn't have the funds to do it. And in my neck of the woods there, you'd be surprised. There's not that much land that's tiled out. I don't know. Grundy County has more tiled land than Hardin County. And the other two parcels I own in Hardin County, which is about 4 total, and they're bigger parcels. Only one has tile in it. And that's not pattern tiled. That's just tile running to known weather areas.
And just to be clear for the record, why would it be more difficult to do the pattern tiling after a pipeline like this would be installed?
Well, first, rounding up the crew, because I'm already probably on a waiting list of people that want their fields tiled, and that's scheduled that, of course, after the crops are out. And then if you're lucky, they might get you ahead of others in the spring. But to answer your question, you're just not going to find anybody that's going to take on a field where there's known pipeline, other pipeline in it, gas or CO2 or cable, because like anybody else, they get paid off of the acres, and so they want big open flat fields with no structures in it. This again, you would if you're running laterals in there every 4 foot, 40 feet with 30 to 36 inch 4-inch tile buried, you're going to need to find that pipeline, the CO2 pipeline, about every 40 feet. That's the intervals of tile. Now, if you want to go to 5-inch tile, you can go to 50 feet, but that costs more. And you have to do that on both pieces of land. So it's simply, I would have to come up with funds ahead of time, ahead of what I would normally try and do this, and do both fields at the same time, which I said earlier, it's about, I'm guessing in 155,000 range to get that done.
If the pipeline were installed, do you believe that would impact the fertility of the land and the quality of your crops?
Oh, absolutely. There's such a thing called soil health. And assuming they will come in with an excavator and like I said, I've seen different writing on this. I don't know if it's 4 foot to go down or it's 6 foot to go down. I would hope it'd be 6 foot. And so an excavator, I would hope that it'd be a single excavator. I don't know that by any means. They may bring in cattle cats and windrow the topsoil off to the side and then come in and windrow the B horizon, and then finally the excavator would dig through the substratum and all that. As far as keeping the soil profile the same after they've gone through, by replacing that never happens. It will be a lot like I said. You kill the soil health on it. You mix up the organic matter. You mess up the soil pH buffer. P and K is all screwed up. Fertilizer wise, your cation exchange, your soil structure, all that's gone.
For the record, what I mean, we're taking things down here with the court reporter, and it'll be typed up in a record, so we need to have some explanation. So what is P and K?
P and K is potassium and phosphorus fertilizer.
And
They're macro fertilizers. P, K, and N are macro fertilizers. Then you have micro fertilizers that there's a host of other ones: copper, zinc, boron, so on.
we've heard other witnesses talk about the compaction of the soil when a pipeline is installed. Is that a concern to you?
Oh, absolutely. I try and minimize compaction on all my ground. One way to do that is by, it helps, it's not a solve-all, but by equipment on tracks, okay? And they're expensive, and the unit itself is almost price prohibitive, but that is the way to go. Compaction on your ground, it can limit your yields on corn 40, 50 bushel an acre. It's just, because I know, I had it before. I once in the fall made a mistake of allowing hog manure building to pull tanks on one of this, what we call the West 80. And they put it on in the fall there and was a little wet. Should have never let them on, but I did. And it compacted that ground for better part of it. It took me 3 years to get rid of that compaction. And that's with a subsolar unit going down about 14, 16 inches.
And that compaction reduces your crop yield?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, off of that. I measured it with my combine monitor. It was all 40, 50 bushels in every place where the passes were with the heavy tanks. Yep.
And other witnesses that have talked about their soil types that they have on their land, and that could have some impact on what effects the installation of the pipeline might have. Is that a concern on your land?
Yes, it is. The higher the clay content, the more compaction you're going to have. Most of this ground is silty clay loam, and that's why it has CSR ratings of 87, 88% for growing crops, row crops. Okay.
Is any of your land in USDA conservation programs?
No, well, any of my land, yes, a year ago, I elected not to go in the program, but I was in a CSR program of 20 years for, as of erosion buffer area.
That's not the case now?
That is not the case. There are none on either one of these parcels here.
Summit has said that the pipeline will benefit the ethanol industry in Iowa. Do you grow corn that you use for ethanol?
Yes, I do.
How do you view the alleged benefit to ethanol from the pipeline in relation to the use of your land?
Well, in growing corn and soybeans, the corn, it's convenient. I'm only 5 miles away from Pine Lake ethanol plant. Then there's another ethanol plant in Powell Falls, so it's about another 15 miles away. And I do haul product to both those locations. As a benefited, benefit that, that they're there, okay, but will this increase any additional bases or reduce bases in this case, or increase price per bushel? Well, for the, I don't know, 10 years I've been hauling into those guys. For example, like last year, we hauled corn across the scale. We got $6.50 for it, in some cases $7 if you did a little bit of forward contracting. Fuel a year ago was probably unleaded 15%, what, 3.5, maybe 3.60. Today, when we haul that corn across, or in the next 2 months, haul corn across these scales, that's same locations, we're going to be paid maybe $4.40, $4.50 for that corn. So that's $2 difference, and the gas pump's still at $3.60, $3.55. Okay. Now, they're buying that corn $2 less per bushel. There's no kickback to us on that.
You mentioned the grass waterway. There we go. And that the pipeline would cross that waterway. Do you know how the pipeline would be constructed across that waterway?
It's a grass waterway that controls erosion. There is not standing water there.
Sure.
And if I do the pattern and tile before the pipeline, it would probably be pretty clear sailing for them that it's just a different soil type, not affecting what they want to do. But I can assure you, and if a pipeline goes across your ground, any pipe I've seen across anybody else's fields or farms, it's a mess for a long time. I don't know how wide these easements even are. I assume it's, 30 feet, 40 feet, might be 50 feet, as far as I know. And I've been involved with a lot of contracts. And I've never seen a contract. Now, all my other contracts, there's a beginning and there's an end. And in this contract, there's no end. It's forever. How can that be?
What discussions have you had with Summit representatives about the proposed easement?
Well, they chased me with a lot of phone calls early, and then finally I got a phone call from somebody out of Texas. And he more or less just mentioned to me that they were going to go service my land that day. I said, Well, if I was you, I wouldn't. And so I don't know if he went there or not. I don't know. I wasn't there. These parcels are ways away from my farmstead. What are they, 8 miles, 6 miles, 8 miles from them. My farmstead, home farmstead, is in Grundy County. And it's about 3 miles across the Hardin County, Grundy County line.
Okay. So these parcels are pretty close to Grundy County?
This one within 3 miles.
Okay. And so why did you not sign an easement?
There's nothing in it for me. Nothing but risk. Why would you sign an agreement? I mean, I own the land. Why would you sign an agreement with a party that wants an easement across it, that there is no end to that agreement? It's an upfront, it's a payment upfront, and that's it after that. And I haven't been, this is the first experience I had with a pipeline. There's none across my other land. That's usually towed or is brought to the front when you purchase it, okay? Anymore, they're lucky they can even tell you where the tile lines are. But if there's a pipeline going through it, they're gonna know that, okay? And you'll know that. I deliberately stayed away from farmland purchases so I wouldn't have a pipeline going through them. And none of my other farms do. Now this one, this land will not be restored within 3 years. I think it was a 3-year payment of depressed yields and so on. You kill the soil health in this, you kill the soil structure, you kill organic matter, it's all mixed up. You don't get it put back right with a ARIs and BRIs, CRIs and substratum. It took Mother Nature hundreds of years to build that profile like that. And as farmers, like myself, we're trying to build organic matter to get better water holding capacity and higher fertility levels, and reduce the cost of higher fertility inputs every year. And so that takes good pH levels and organic matter and microbe activity to help break all that down and release natural fertilizer that comes from the soil itself. Okay? You do this to that land, it will take, I can't tell you how long it would take to get that back in order. And the sheer compaction of it, I told you before, one field, one pass of one machine, 1 year. It took 3 years just to take that out. The soil structure will not be built by mechanical means. Soil structure is built by Mother Nature, freezing and thawing. And well, it depends on your soil type, on how long it's going to take to build that back.
Thank you, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Myers, Farm Bureau.
Hi, Mr. Oelmann. My name is David Myers. I'm an attorney for the Iowa Farm Bureau Federation. I have a few questions for you. Did you submit any comments or objections in this matter?
In writing?
Correct, and filed with the Iowa Utilities Board docket for this matter.
Did not.
Earlier you mentioned one of your concerns was how close the pipeline is to your field entry. Can you explain any ways that Summit could address those concerns?
Yes, they should relocate the entry, move their pipeline a quarter mile In some cases, it won't even be that, further to the west. If you would do that, you would miss both my parcels. And I'm not sure if you would affect any other land, privately owned properties by doing that. Well, in my area, I don't think you would, because there's not that many other fields there. And you can see on the map here, if you shifted that a quarter mile, or it's not even a quarter mile, it's about whatever that pipeline is from the intersection, well, from the field boundary. The field boundary would be right here. I'm guessing that's less than a third of a mile. I'll shift that to your west. And if you shift it there, it would be shifted the rest of the way, and you would miss the other part, 80 acres I own. That'd be a happy Wednesday for me.
Do you know approximately how deep your topsoil is on your property?
About 14 inches.
And if someone were to come on and dig a trench, would you expect them to separate out the topsoil?
Well, I sure would have if I was doing it, but expecting them to do it is expecting them to do it and them doing it are two different things. Would I expect it? Absolutely. But even if I'm there that day when they're doing it, I doubt if they're going to listen to me.
Do you have crop insurance?
Of course.
Has the NRCS designated any highly erodible land on your property?
Well, you're talking designated by soil type, correct? That would be in a soil survey book?
Correct.
Yes, there is, but it's a very small amount, and it's on the other parcel, not this one. Oh, excuse me, I stand corrected. We were there. Sorry. And that would be located right there. So if you had a soil survey map is a manual that identifies all the different soil types on that 80 acres. On that 80 acres, there could be 5 or 6 different soil types. And the one you're talking about is more than likely a 12 to 15% slope, hill slope, with most of the organic matter either already eroded or highly erodible if it's left without cover.
And just to confirm, you pointed at the map that it was just south of that kind of grass waterway.
Yes, right about there. That's correct.
And do you need a conservation plan with the NRCS for this field?
We discussed one. I didn't implement that. And if you were going to implement that, you would do a soil buffer zone on the south side of this field. That would be in the, 40-foot range, width-wise, all across the southern border, all across the southern piece of this ground.
Mr. Oelmann and all the parties, can we just make sure we're using the field name and also describing where we're talking? Okay. It'll make life much easier going back through the record. Mm-hmm. And so we are still, all we're on HD-011.
Yes.
And you call that the
West 80.
West 80.
Yeah.
And the HD7, you call that
South 80.
South 80. Yep. All right. That'll be helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
So it makes sense to everybody here. And there's also an East 80. And I had a chance a year ago to have a north 80, but I decided not to.
For either parcel, West 80, South 80, are there any designated wetlands?
There is not.
Any designated wetlands for West 80 or South 80?
No, there's none.
Is either property West 80 or South 80 enrolled in a CRP program?
No, they are not.
Is either property West 80 or South 80 enrolled in a CSP program?
No.
For the next portion of my questions, I just want to confirm you understand if the pipeline is granted, as part of that process, the board will approve easement language to your specific Exhibit H properties, West 80 and South 80. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Perfect, because my questions are going to be premised on that assumption that this is granted, and we'll walk through what your wants are for your property, okay?
Okay.
Would you expect Summit or its successors to follow Iowa's ag land restoration rules when it comes to placing the pipeline on each parcel of your property?
Yes, I would.
And again, if the board grants this permit, would you want to have the option to consider signing an easement agreement under the best terms and compensation that Summit has offered other landowners?
I don't think I'm signing an agreement.
Okay. Do you want the board to identify the exact pipeline route as shown on each Exhibit H? Again, one for West 80 and one for South 80 in their order.
Yes, I would like to see that.
And then would you expect Summit to acquire a new easement for each of your Exhibit H parcels if Summit were in the future to move or relocate the easement?
Yes.
Do you want to be able to enter the easement area when Summit is not actively constructing on each Exhibit H parcel?
Yes.
And would you prefer the board's final order limit where Summit can go to access your property, again identified as West 80 and South 80?
Form of the question.
Go ahead and reply. As part of the Exhibit H, Summit is granted access to the property as part of the easement and would like to know if Mr. Oelmann would want or prefer any restrictions to access onto his property for the easement. Mr. Jorde.
Yeah, it's just to the making sure that if is in there as opposed to asking the question, the preference to the board's approval. So as long as it's always with if, I don't have an objection.
Agreed. Again, under the assumption if the board grants the pipeline in the final easements for each Exhibit H parcel you own, would you want the board to limit where Summit can go to access the easement on your property?
Hypothetically, yes.
If you have crop yield reductions in the easement area in the future, would you want Summit to compensate you for the crop yield reductions?
Yes.
Currently, do you know what size pipe Summit would like to install on each Exhibit H parcel?
Well, I did get some correspondence that said a 4-inch, and then I think I've seen again that it might be a 6-inch. So I don't know. It could be an 8-inch by now. I don't know.
And again, under the assumption if this pipeline is granted, would you want the board, as part of their final order, to issue and limit that Summit can only use X-inch diameter pipe on your property?
Yes.
would you like Summit to consult with you before it decides to change the grade of the land in the easement area from the original grade on your property?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Oelmann. Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, Hardin County.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Darrell Meyer, Hardin County Attorney, represent the Board of Supervisors. I've just got some questions about your tiling needs and tiling plans. You provided some testimony about that, and I just had a few things to maybe clarify for myself, maybe for the board. It's my understanding that you've owned both these tracks, 07 and 11, less than 10 years, or longer than that?
No, the south 80, probably 4 to 5 years, and the west 80 there. Oh, I bet it's going on 11, 12 years.
Okay. And I think I understood you to say that you had plans for tiling on both of the properties.
Yes, they both need it. It doesn't this year, but 2 years ago, most certainly. So it's been in the plans, it's just saving up enough money.
Sure. And did I understand you kind of estimated what you thought it would cost? It was, I think you said $155,000. That would cover both tiling projects on both pieces?
Yes, I would hope it would, and hopefully even less, but no, it's every bit of that. You know?
Okay. Is it your understanding that Summit's plan is to begin construction in 2024? Did you know that?
Yeah. No, my hope is that the Iowa Utility Board stands by us private landowners, and maybe that won't happen then.
Well, let's call it a worst case scenario for you then.
Yeah.
Would their plans of beginning construction in 2024 give you realistic, ample time to get your tiling done?
No. It would be pushing it because tilers are, they're busy. They're busy, and you have to get on the list. Well, it would have to be this fall, if not spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a couple factors, time and money seem to be obstacles for you, I guess, getting in there before what they want to do.
No, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
According to the filings that Summit has filed in the case, the easement language that was presented to you, you're aware that if they get their easement, you'd have to get their permission to get on the property to do the tiling?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't plan on giving up my property rights. All right, but if it comes to that, I think there's a whole lot of other things that are going to be discussed before that.
And I appreciate that. I guess my point was that would be an extra burden, not just the cost of tiling as it would be today with or without this project. But if this happens, the burden on you is going to be greater to get the tiling done. Would that be fair?
Yes, it would be.
You were asked a few minutes ago about things that you would like to see required if the permit is approved. Would you like to see that they don't construct on your property until you get your tiling done?
Yes, it would be very helpful.
Or if that weren't approved, if you could get your tiling done without getting the easement holder's permission.
Yes, that also.
How about, maybe they help you out to get it done, maybe incentivize some contractors to put you at the top of the list, 160,000, 0% interest that's payable over the term of the easement, which is forever.
Yeah.
You like that too?
Yeah, sorry, say again.
You'd have forever to pay back the loan.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
work out?
Yes, yeah, I would.
No other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Long.
They don't love Western,
Just a moment. Board staff, could you put Iowa Code section 479B.31 on the screen? So while they're getting that ready, sir, you mentioned that did I understand your prior testimony correctly that one of your concerns is that it would, if you tried to do tiling of your two parcels after the pipeline was in, that the tiling project would cost more? Was that one of your concerns?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, here's the statute. Excuse me. Can you see in the first sentence that it says additional costs of new tile construction caused by a pipeline shall be paid by the pipeline company?
Yes, I do see that.
Okay, would that, would that help you in deciding whether you need to do tile now or whether you could wait until after they were done, if it were granted, to Mr. Jorde's point?
To a small extent, the bulk of the cost of this is the tile itself and the acres involved. The additional cost on this, I don't know. I don't have a number for you because I don't know how many 40-foot increments you would have to find a line. But it's a small part of it. It's great that they would pick up that cost, but it's not great for me to have to seek out the money and pay interest where interest is nowadays to get the project done.
Understood. Thank you. Now I'd just like to ask a question that is following up, and I'm going to try to restate, I think, in my own words, something that Farm Bureau was asking me about. My question is, if the board grants eminent domain over your property, would you like the board to require Summit to make you one last offer that is at least as good as the most recent offer they made you, so that you would have the choice between either accepting that offer for compensation or going to the County Compensation Commission to determine the amount of compensation you get?
Well, I think for landowners like myself who really don't see any upside to this, that it has to be negotiated with each and every one of us. I think to answer your question, well, are you asking that additional funds would get an easement signed? Is that your question?
I don't think that's what I was focusing on. Obviously, it would be from what you previously said, it would be a worst case scenario for you. But if the pipeline were going to happen, and the question was, how do you determine how much compensation you're going to get? Would you rather have the option of, would you rather have the board require them to make the same cash compensation that they previously offered to you, so that you could choose between that and going to the County Compensation Commission, which would make its own determination of the compensation?
To answer your question, I would rather do a negotiation on myself, on my own behalf. But I don't think I answered you totally.
So is it your answer then that you'd at least like, you'd like Summit to be required to continue negotiating with you rather than going straight to the County Compensation Commission if the pipeline were approved and eminent domain were granted on your property?
What the fuck is this?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Ms. Wright?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
You talked a little bit about your soil earlier, and in particular the soil structure and composition and how important that is and how that can be damaged during construction. But I want to ask a slightly different aspect of soil care, and in particular when it comes to things like microbes and organic matter, because you also mentioned not only being concerned with possibility of rupture, but also with leaks. So what could the impact be of things like a carbon dioxide leak or rupture on things like the microbes and organic matter in your soil?
The microbes are small, very small microorganisms that break down organic matter into usable forms of nitrogen. And so it would kill all of them. Same thing that anhydrous does. For those who elect to put on anhydrous, I don't. I'm a liquid nitrogen operator. I don't use nitrogen because it does exactly that. Kills organic matter, well, actually kills microbes that break down organic matter, kills worms. It'll raise the acidity of your ground, and it also causes compaction.
So if there were an incident that
Judgy,
killed the
judgy.
microbes in the soil, that would be pretty economically damaging, right?
Yes, it would. You might be able to tell it with crop symptoms. But my question there earlier was, what if there's a leak? What if there's a couple of leaks? Those are going to be awful hard to find when that pipe is 6 foot down in the ground and it slowly is coming up through the soil substratum, B-rise and A-rise, and then finally to the surface, and then essentially not leaving the surface. All right? You might be able to tell by soil samples of that, a higher concentration of CO2, but you might have, there's mice that live in fields. You might see some dead rodents that would indicate something
Oh
like
my
that.
God!
But when there's a full crop of corn or beans on it, I don't know anybody that's going to be able to tell it.
And if something happened that killed microbes in the soil, how long would it take to recover from that?
Years. Your microbe activity is balanced off of soil health. It's balanced off of the amount of organic matter, the amount of roots, the amount of cover crop, the amount of fertilizer, and the amount that it rains.
Just to get a better idea, when you say years, are we talking 10 years, 50 years?
To build a good micro environment, healthy soil, you're looking at and still keep the ground, productive, 8 to 10 years.
Thank you.
You done, Ms. Ryan?
Oh, yes, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jorde?
Yes, thank you. And if I could please have that statute 479B.13 put back up on the screen, please. All right, sir, you were asked some questions about this. Have you ever seen this language before, or had any reason to have any dealings with this language based on any tiling you've done?
No, this is the first time I've seen it.
And so if we look at this, it talks about to receive compensation under the section there, the second sentence, that the landowner or agent of the landowner, you need to present an invoice specifying additional costs caused by the presence of the pipeline, and then that has to be accompanied by a written verification by the county engineer or soil and water conservation district conservationist. That's one way to go about it. Now, what do you think about putting you to all of that work and then relying on the county engineer or the soil and water conservation district conservationist to agree with you and see it your way? What do you think the likelihood of all that is?
A train wreck. I didn't read the rest of this, but that the additional cost would be picked up by the pipeline company. Okay, we should have read the rest of it, because I wouldn't even mess with it. There's enough. My time is worth something, and so is everybody else's. And at the end of the day, you just pay it off and move forward.
Well, and then
That's kind of the mentality of all of this. We're going straight for the pot of gold, and we need to get as many people out of the way as we can.
and that's your view on what Summit's doing.
Yes.
And then if we, just to finish this out here, we read the second option after the word conservationist, or then you could reach an agreement with the pipeline company on the project design, and then you can share in the cost to be paid by the pipeline company. What do you think about that?
Same thing I think about signing their agreements for an easement. I don't see that happening.
And along those lines, and I totally respect that answer, but do you understand that Summit is asking this board for the power to say, who cares about that? We have eminent domain. We'll just take you to court and there's nothing you can do about it. Understand that's what they're here asking on your land?
Yep, I do. That's why I'm sitting here today. I could easily wrote, my grievances in earlier and send it in, but nope. You need to hear from landowners themselves, this, they're actually not using that much of my acres, but for all the rest of them that aren't here, this is disastrous for the land itself. And again, what's in it for us? I don't see anything that's a positive on this. Again, I'm used to agreements that have a beginning and have an end. This has no end. This thing is all one-sided. If it's signed off by this board here, we're done. We're doomed. We have no recourse on it. And we're giving up the property rights of those acres to an unknown party. You know it today. I don't think they'll keep this thing over 2 years without selling it to who knows who? Russia.
And in terms of that perpetual potential hazardous pipeline on your land, is it fair to say that you believe that would have a serious negative economic impact on your property?
Yeah, so it have negative impact on it. Just to build that soil health back and get those acres back in production. not to mention the hazardous, the risk of the pipeline being there until eternity. That's a risk I'm unwilling to take.
Do you have concerns about the soil fertility and yields if the pipeline is to transport molecules at 88 to 90 degrees and then creates a greater amount of heat around the surrounding soils?
Yes, it's possible that that ground right below the pipeline will not freeze. And so you don't get the freezing thawing effect that Mother Nature does on the other ground. That's where some of the soil health is being built by that freezing and thawing. It breaks down compacted areas, and the microbes move up and down in the soil profile, along with the earthworms. They won't move. As a matter of fact, they may not even live in that area. We don't know that.
Mm-hmm. Are you aware that the easement rights Summit seeks has filed against you in this docket would allow them to install power lines on your property?
No, I did not know that.
Are you aware of the easement rights they seek before this board on your property would allow them the sole right to prevent you or anyone else from doing anything that would interfere in their sole decision with the convenient use, access, operation of their easement or their pipeline?
No, we didn't know that, but I'm sure there's even other stuff we don't know. The concern I have too, once you have this easement in place, or you have a pipeline in place, what's stopping them from putting another pipeline in 3 years from now? Another pipeline 3 years after that. Already have the easement. So this is the tip of an iceberg, the way I look at it.
You mentioned earlier that you've specifically chosen not to purchase land that has either hazardous pipelines or pipelines that you perceive to be dangerous. Was that your testimony?
Yes, it was.
And would you agree, would you not purchase land in the future if there was a CO2 pipeline located there?
I would not.
And if you had one forced upon you unwillingly and were forced to sell in the future, would you fault any bidders to be bidding substantially less for your property with that CO2 pipeline as opposed to land without it?
That's an unknown, but typically it would decrease the value of your property.
And from your experience in bidding and buying on farm ground in your area, is it more typical than not that there's a local group of buyers, typically adjacent landowners, that tend to be the bidders?
Yes.
And so it's a small amount of people that tend to make the market in a particular area, correct?
That is correct.
And in your particular area, you would be taking yourself out of that market because you're not interested in ground with this proposed pipeline.
That's right.
You were asked some questions by the Farm Bureau with the premise of, your expectations of what Summit may or may not do. You understand that there's no part of this process that's allowing you to tell Summit what to do. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. Yep.
And you were asked some questions if you would like to consult with them. Are you aware of anywhere in the easement that Summit has to agree with whatever your decision is following said consultation?
Yeah. I don't know anything in that agreement that they would be obligated to do at all.
No. In terms of your land use, has stated that you produce corn, soybeans on a rotation, and that you've hauled corn into Pine Lake ethanol plant before. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Has Summit provided you a copy of their offtake agreement with Pine Lake to see if Pine Lake agrees to pass on any alleged increase in basis to you, the potential hauler of grain?
No, absolutely not.
And would you be surprised if that doesn't exist and Pine Lake has